to teaching in Thailand. My name is Teacher Kim. I've been a teacher in Thailand for over 2.5 years, and before that I was a teacher in the US for 3 years. And so I've really grown as a teacher over the years, and I continue to grow. This video is going to be all about classroom management. And for me, it's been one of the most challenging parts of teaching. In school and in my training, I learned all about theory and content, but I didn't really learn about how to manage students. And actually, a lot of it is just building your confidence and feeling strong when you're teaching and being able to make quick decisions and to deal with many situations. Teaching is harder than it looks. At least that's how it has been for me. When you start teaching, it's like, wow, this is hard. There's a lot of decisions and things that go on. For me, it's been harder than it looks, but it's also one of the most fulfilling jobs. Once you get it down and you start to feel confident, yeah, I can do this, then it's really rewarding to feel like you're making a difference and impacting your students. So for classroom management in Thailand, some aspects are different than in the US and in other countries, but some are the same because kids are kids no matter where you go. And something that I learned that I always remember is that every behavior is an expression of a student's need. So I could be frustrated, like, why are they behaving this way? But then I remember, okay, they're behaving this way for a reason. I remember that, and that always helps me find a solution, and it helps me be more calm and deal with the situation effectively. In Thailand, we start and end a class with the students giving a Y. The Y is the Thai greeting where they put their hands together and they lean forward and they say, "Good morning, teacher. How are you today?" And they say it all together as a class. And then I'll answer back, "I'm fine. How are you today?" And I personally like it. Some foreign teachers, it feels kind of weird to have all the students Ying them, but for me, I like it. I like to feel the respect, that it's a nice part of Thai culture. There's a lot of respect towards teachers. And also, I think it's a very effective way to signal to the class, now we're starting the class. Now it's time to get into the mode of being in my class, especially since our language is limited. And it's just also a part of the Thai culture. They do it in the Thai classes as well. And then at the end of the class, the same thing. The students will also Y and say, "Thank you," and "Goodbye, teacher." And I think it's another nice way to end the class. For elementary students, I have to signal, okay, everyone stand up, hands up, together, and say, "Good morning, teacher." Or I'll play a little game with them with their hands or stretching, and then have them start. For the older kids, a lot of the times they'll do it automatically, or there will be a class leader that has all of the students stand up to start and end the class. Hands up, together, and together, and apart, and together, and apart, and together, and together, and apart, and together, and together, and apart, 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 and apart, and together, and say, "Good morning, teacher." How are you today? in Thailand, all of the students have a nickname. And some of these nicknames, they can be very interesting. I've had latte, piano, ice. Those are some examples of the nicknames. And I think it's a good idea to really try to learn students' nicknames. A lot of the times in my first class, I'll have them make a little name tag or a name card, and I'll have them hold it up and I'll take their picture, and then I'll study the pictures and learn their nicknames. Learning their Thai names is hard because their names are so long, and I just use their nicknames. So I think it's a really good idea to use their nicknames. Sometimes it's really hard if you have so many students. If you have hundreds of students, there's been times where I'm just like, oh, it's just too many students. But whenever possible, I recommend learn their nicknames. That way it's easier to address them in class, and it helps to build rapport with them. And that's another thing. Build relationships with your students. Build rapport with them. Get to know them. Learn about their interests, what they like. Then you can incorporate that into the lesson, and it shows that you care about them, that you have concern for them, and it will make them respect you more and want to follow you and go along with your class. Even outside of class, at lunch or at recess or after school, you can spend time with your students, just playing games with them or having a conversation with them. You can help them practice their English. So definitely build rapport, build relationships with your students. They love it, and it's also very rewarding for you as a teacher. Next, I want to talk about attention getters. It's very important to use attention getters to quiet your class down and to get them to listen to you. It's important to teach your students not to talk when you are talking. Otherwise, they are going to miss that instruction. And it's really important to use attention getters in any classroom in the US, but even more so here in a second language classroom where understanding is limited. So having some kind of signal that pulls them back, that they all recognize, is important to have. And I recommend using more than one to keep things fresh. The one that works the best for me is clap. So I'll teach them clap 1, clap 2, I'll look at them, clap 3. Yes. And they have to do all of those claps, and sometimes I'll do it slower or faster, and then sometimes I'll say, okay, put your hands like this and sit up properly at your desk. Sometimes when I'm teaching, I'll remind them to sit up and not slouch over or sit up, straight posture. That's one attention getter that you can use. I also use waterfall, waterfall. They will go. Sometimes I'll do the countdown if they're doing a conversation and I don't want to chop them off right in the middle of their sentence. So I'll do 10, 9, 8, and all the way down to 0. But I think it's very good to have an attention getter that requires them to do something, like the claps or something they have to say. Then that pulls them in. They can't keep talking. They have to do the attention getter. So that can be very useful. Some other attention getters that I use, the teacher says, clear, clear, and the students say, clear my desk. And they're rapidly clearing their desk. That's the signal for them to clear their desk and to be ready. Or another time, I'll say, zip, zip, and they say, zip my lips. Another signal for them to be quiet. Clear, clear. Yeah! Up properly and be ready. All of these attention getters, I will teach 1 or maybe 2 in my first class, and I'll use it for a couple classes, and then I'll introduce another one, and I'll keep using those if they're effective. If not, maybe I'll pull in another attention getter and use that. And I make sure they practice the attention getter first, so I make sure they understand and know what to do. So it's not always chaotic and they're not, what's going on? Make sure they understand right away when you first teach them that attention getter. A lot of classroom management courses recommend focus on the positive, avoid the negative. And that can be true. It's a good idea to praise students, to look at the things that they are doing right and doing well in the classroom. It can reward their good behavior and it can show a model to other students. This works really well with younger students especially. I like the way that Pim is sitting. The other students, oh, I want that praise too. All of a sudden they'll sit up too. Oh yes, I like the way that Dongtrin is sitting. The older kids, they don't buy it so much, but you can find other things to praise. You can talk to them individually or about their work and praise them in that way as well. When you have students who are misbehaving, there are some small, simple things that can be very effective that you can do. One of these is proximity. That means moving closer to a student. Sometimes just simply by walking closer to a student, moving towards their desk, they see you coming, oh, they know that they need to behave. Or maybe I'll tap their shoulder or tap their desk. That's another signal for them to follow along. Sometimes eye contact can work. Giving them the evil teacher eye can send the message that they need to follow along. I try to use these before I call out their name and give attention to them, or then all the class sees them and hears their name. But sometimes I need to do that. I'm in the front of the class and way in the back is a student who's playing around or doing something, and I just call out their name. I don't take the time to go all the way to the back and talk to them, especially when I'm in the middle of teaching all the class. And sometimes that's important. They might be missing instruction because they're not following along, and so you shouldn't feel bad about calling out a student's name. Again, sometimes you can say, like, a group of students, row 4, sit up, and then maybe you can do it without calling the name. But sometimes it can be the most effective way to pull them back into the lesson. So what to do about chatty students? This is probably the type of student that you will encounter the most. And their biggest distraction can be each other, their peers. They want to talk and play, and that's good. They need to have that interaction, but they also need to be quiet and follow along and get the instruction that you're giving them. And so when you have a really chatty student, of course you can do all the attention getters. You can set expectations and build the rapport with them and tell them they need to be quiet, and then you'll still get a chatty student. And that's when you need to remind them, okay, you need to be quiet, and give them a warning. And then sometimes you might just have to move them. If they are next to somebody who they always chat with, move them to a desk away. Tell them, if you're not going to stop talking, you're going to be moved. And if they make that decision, they're going to keep talking, then move the student. Sometimes they don't always understand you, and so you can gesture to them to stand up and move them over to the other desk. These chatty students we can also use in our lessons. They like attention, and sometimes we need these students to help model the language. And so it's nice when I have a confident student and I will model doing a dialogue, a question and answer, and I have the student, all of a sudden they get the spotlight on them. This is what they like. This is positive attention. And a lot of the time the students are really shy and don't want to practice. So when you have this one student who's confident, use them and help them model the lesson. What about angry students? Well, actually, students are mostly very happy in Thailand, and compared to teaching in the US, I can see a difference. The students are actually happier here in Thailand, but there are issues as well, and everyone goes through their ups and downs, and I have had angry students even in Thailand. And when I get these really angry students, you can tell in their face, or they're crying, or they just look all tense. I will try to comfort them as best as I can, but the communication is very limited. So I pull in a Thai teacher a lot of the time if I can, and try to have them ask what's going on and figure out. If there's no Thai teacher around, I will tell the student to get a drink of water or go to the bathroom just to get a little space, just to get a little air. Sometimes I will give them this little handout. It's a blank face, and they can circle the emotion and they can draw in the face. I had one student, maybe he had some family issues in grade 1, this little guy, he was angry every day. And so I would just give him the sheet and he would get angry and scribble all over it. But I think it was good. It was a good way for him to release his emotions, because in the Thai culture, being very emotional and talking about your emotions is kind of frowned down upon. And so these emotions can get bottled up inside. So this is just one little way that I found. You can look for other little creative ways that are healthy ways for students to release their emotions. And if the students do go through a little episode, try to follow up later on, make sure they're all right. Use your Thai teachers to help communicate and make sure that the issue gets smoothed over and that everyone is safe and that we can resolve issues as much as we can. What about students going to the bathroom? In the US, students use this a lot to try to get out of class. I don't have so much of an issue in Thailand. Maybe a couple of times I've had students take advantage of it, but mostly it's not an issue. That being said, for your younger grades, grade 1 and grade 2, it's a good idea to say at the very beginning when you first walk in, "Does anyone need the bathroom? Go now." Otherwise, in the middle of your lesson, all these little hands will start raising, "Teacher, bathroom." And then all of a sudden you'll find half of your class has left in the middle of your lesson because they are young and they aren't really good at being aware of when they need to go to the bathroom. So at the beginning of your class, it's a good idea to give them a little bathroom break. Using a reward system can also be helpful in managing your class. For me, I like to divide the class into groups, 2 to 4 or 5 groups, not much more than that. And I'll write G1, G2, group 1, group 2, group 3 on the board. And I'll just put little tally marks when the group is behaving. And so I'm like, okay, which group is sitting up properly? I'll look around, they want to be the first group. This even works for the older grades. To do this, I'll just give them points. I don't even give them anything for the points. It's just they see that point, and it's another form of communication. It shows like, yes, this is my expectation for you. This is the behavior that you need to be doing. The groups that are not getting the points, they can look and see, oh, that group is getting the points. That's what we need to do. Sometimes if I'm struggling with a class and I need that extra boost to get them to behave, I will use stickers, especially if I want to recognize good students at the end. Some teachers use candy, and this can really motivate students. All of a sudden you will have a noisy, chaotic class behaving because they really want that candy. I do not use candy, and I don't recommend using it because all of a sudden you will become the candy teacher. If the students know that you give candy, they will, "Teacher, candy," all the time. They will bug you for candy. Usually the students, they always want to help you. They want to do tasks. They're always asking me to help me. It's so nice. But when you become the candy teacher, it becomes, will I get candy if I do this? And that takes away from the intrinsic desire to behave and do the right thing. So rewards can be very effective, but we also have to balance them out and make sure that students are learning to behave, not just for that little carrot or reward at the end. You can also use activities and games as a reward. If the students, you can tell them, if you're behaving and following along, we will get through the lesson faster and we will have more time for our game or our dance party or our songs at the end. You can also take it away from them. If we're singing a song and the kids are not doing what they need to be, turn off the song. Sorry, sit down. We cannot sing the song because you are not following the expectations that I set. And so you need to also follow through on those expectations and enforce them so the students know that you're serious and they know that you're following through on those expectations. Sometimes student behavior is a reflection of your teaching. Maybe your class is boring. I've been that way, I can say that. Or maybe you are just the way that you're teaching is confusing to the students. And so find ways to make your teaching engaging and clear to the students. And especially make sure that there's a lot of different activities throughout your teaching. This can also help them understand better using the different intelligences. If they see something visually, if they hear it in a song, if if they can touch it, if they can act it out, these will also help them understand, and it will make your lesson more engaging. Especially for the really young kids who have a short attention span, it's a good idea to get them up and moving. They're sitting down for most of the day. And in their Thai classes, the Thai teachers tend to teach in a more traditional approach. They get lectured to, and the students have to sit and memorize all the content and perform on a test. So with the foreign teachers, we can bring in new techniques and make our classes very exciting and engaging, especially because it's going to be harder for them to follow along because we're speaking a foreign language. So include movement, include different activities, partner conversations, group work, acting out, skits, projects. Use different ways of teaching, and it will keep your class fresh and engaging for the students. While you're teaching, be aware of student needs and see how the class feels and how they are responding. Sometimes they might be very sleepy. And what I do when this happens is sometimes I will ask, are you all so tired? Yes, teacher, we're so tired. And I will give them a 2-minute nap. Okay, heads down. You can take a little break for 2 minutes. It's okay. They can have a little break and a little nap. Sometimes that helps them turn off for a little while. And then when you wake them up, that refreshes them. And then sometimes I will do a little energizer to get their blood flowing and to get them thinking again. So I'll give them a nap, and then maybe I'll have them sing a song or do a movement. I'll even do yoga or stretches, things to help wake them up. On the other hand, you might have students, they come in from a very exciting class or something outside and they're super energetic, they're running around. And so then you need to calm the class down. Sometimes I will have them do a very energetic song where they're running and jumping to get that energy out. And then I will do slower songs where they're still participating and engaging. I'll lower my voice a little bit, and that will help them calm down and get into the space and the mood for being in my class. Another classroom management tip is to get help. Ask your Thai teachers, ask other teachers for help. Sometimes we want to try to do everything on our own to feel like, oh, if I get another teacher, it will give away my authority. But sometimes you've done everything that you can do, and if you want your class to be effective, sometimes the best thing is to get help. This can help if there is an issue that is complex or hard to explain. You can have a co-teacher or a Thai teacher, an advisor come in and help explain. And sometimes you just cannot get the same amount of respect that you see the Thai teachers. Why do the Thai teachers get so much respect? Well, you're a foreigner and it's harder for them to understand, and they might feel like, ooh, we can get away with more. The Thai teachers, they're seen as more strict. And so then the Thai students are like, oh, this is our time when we can act out. And so you have to set that expectation. No, I'm a teacher too, and I have these expectations of you. I'm going to enforce them. Something that is a little shocking for foreigners sometimes is that physical discipline is still used in Thailand. So sometimes you might see a Thai teacher hitting the Thai student on the hand, or hitting their desk, or hitting them even. So that's a little shocking for some foreigners when they first see it. Ooh, they are very strict. And so just something to be mindful of. If you ask for the Thai teacher, if you tell them of an issue, be prepared, like they might use that discipline technique. Some of us foreigners come in and think that we have all the solutions and the right way, but it's a good idea to be open-minded and just consider, at least from my perspective, the Thai students are happier than students in the West, where I've been teaching, at least in my experience. Even in the US, where there's more recess time, there's more extracurricular activities, and there's kind of this mode of the students need a voice, but then they end up being really entitled and it's harder to get the same respect. in Thailand, students, they have more of a traditional approach. They're lectured to and they're expected to show their respect and why the teacher, they use the physical discipline. They don't have so many of these extracurricular activities. Sometimes they can have very long school days. Even after school, they're going to study more. But something has to be said for how happy these students are. Overall, the students are happier. That's what I've seen and observed so far in Thailand. So we have to be open-minded and just look around us and do what's going to be best, of course, for the students and for our classes. So I really enjoy teaching. I'm really glad that I've chosen this profession and that I've stuck with it and followed through, and it's very fulfilling and rewarding. It took me a long time, though, to feel confident and good about my teaching. Maybe for some people it comes naturally. For me, no. I had to work through it, but I'm glad that I stuck with it and I really enjoy it. It's not for everyone, and just keep that in mind. It's okay to make mistakes. I did. It took me a long time to feel good about myself teaching, and even now, of course, I'm still learning. It's always good to have that mindset. You're always going to be learning. You're always going to be having new situations, but just come in with a lot of joy and gratitude, and that will really make a difference in your teaching. I was just watching a video of myself teaching recently, and I thought I was strong, but I remembered actually when I was teaching, my mind was not quite present. I was thinking about something else, and I noticed it in the video. Oh, I can see my teaching was not up to par. And so I have to remember when I'm teaching, yes, I'm happy to be here. I'm glad. Don't have the mindset like, oh, I just need to make it through. The kids will pick up on that. Even if you're acting it out and trying to do your best, change your mindset. Have the mindset, yes, I am happy to be here. This is the right place for me. And that will make your teaching so much more enjoyable for you and your students. So I hope you enjoyed my video. If you have any comments about classroom management or teaching, please write those below. Or if you have any questions for me, I love talking about teaching and about Thailand. And please like my video and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Sawadee ka.
Such a happy day.